What I, as a veterinarian, do for my personal dog. Because I get it. You're like, okay, the professionals, they know what to do, what not to do, so they must do it right, right? And what I will tell you is that what I'm doing for my dog, I didn't do his whole life. When you know better, you can do better. And you only know what you know, right? So I'm going to go over a list of things that I do for my dog now so that I can help him live better because I want him to live longer and I want to enjoy him with him living longer. And so food, I'm sure that's no surprise. I'm so intentional about his food. And so what does that look like? That looks like me rotating different food options and flavors. I'm really intentional about ingredients. I really try to be mindful of seed oils and omega-6. I know he can get omega-6 from his food, so how can I be mindful of that balance? If you haven't listened to my episode 2 about seed oils, I highly recommend it, where I talk about omega-6 is kind of like the pedal in the car, and omega-3 is kind of like the brakes. And you want to have a good ratio because if you have too much pedal, you're going too fast and it's dangerous. You have too much brake, well, then you're not going anywhere. And so they can get omega-6 from their food. So I have a list here because I have a whole list of things as I started thinking about it. And I was like, oh my gosh, I actually am doing a lot for my dog. And I want to be able to share it with you so that you can give yourself some praise and some recognition that you are doing really good, small, intentional things for your dog, or be like, oh my gosh, that's a really good idea. I didn't think about that. Hasn't been talked about me in a vet visit. So being really intentional about his food, being really intentional about his ingredients. I do think that offering a variety of flavors, and when I say flavors, we commonly think of, is it chicken, pork, beef, salmon, quail, duck, offering that because he can tolerate it, offering that, and also because it adds biodiversity to his gut. So it adds like a community. So imagine like if you went to school from kindergarten all the way through college and you only had one person teaching you all the rest, all the subjects. And let's say they were qualified to teach all of them. That's okay, right? But imagine, and this is what happens when you go through school, you have different teachers for different subjects. You get different perspectives. You get different lessons, you learn different ways. And so I think adding diversity to your dog's diet allows you to add diversity to their gut, which is really good because then you have this diverse community of bacteria and that can help their immune system. So I'm really focused on ingredient integrity. I'm really focused on the type of ingredients. And again, I talked about this in episode 3 about like overrated ingredients, that I'm really intentional about his protein. Like, where is the protein coming from in his food? And so, yes, I'm looking at the guaranteed analysis. I'm looking at the breakdown, which is basically what the guaranteed analysis is on his food. But I'm also looking at like what is the source of this? I like offering him a variety of beef and turkey and pork and salmon. I love offering it to him. And he is on a little bit of a mix of fresh food and air dried kibble and freeze dried kibble to add that diversity. Plus, it makes it very easy for me as a working professional to come home after a long day of work and be able to provide him something that is, I know, balanced and is meeting the checklist. Also, I really am intentional about avoiding artificial flavors and artificial coloring as much as possible. What I don't do is I don't give my dog packaged treats. I opt for fresh foods for him, fresh fruits and vegetables that I know that he loves. And so that's where I can offer him even more whole foods. So that is what I currently do for that. And I don't chase trends necessarily. I'm intrigued by trends. I'm like, okay, is this on to something? Is this finally getting the attention? But I'm not, because like grain free is hip, that I'm doing it. I'm not falling into like trends because trends come and go. We've seen that on the human side, right? We've seen Atkins, we've seen paleo, we've seen low carb, we've seen keto. And I'm not saying that any of those are bad because they're trendy. I'm just saying we've seen all these different things. They have different purposes. So I'm not about like feeding the most expensive food. I'm about being intentional for my dog. And so feeding him is one of the things I do for him twice a day. And going into that, I don't feed my dog snacks during the day. He's not one of those dogs that every time he goes to the bathroom, he gets a treat. I don't do that for him. He gets fed in the morning and at night. He sometimes will get a little bit of a fresh food treat in the morning, a piece of fruit sometimes. I do reward him after I do his nails because he is so good about me trimming his nails. He literally will hand me his paws and stand still. And so I reward that good behavior, usually with a melon, mango, some sort of fresh food that he absolutely loves. And so I'm really intentional about that. And so I don't feed him during the day because I really believe him going through this self detox process called autophagy is really important. So I'm not constantly feeding him. So I'm also supporting him that way nutritionally so that he can kind of detox himself on his own. I also do daily walks and enrichment. I think this is so important now, depending on where you live, temperature, environment. Weather can absolutely play a role. I get it. I live in Florida, and so during the summer, it can be really brutally hard to walk him during certain times of the day. I'm really intentional about him getting his morning walks and his morning sniffs. I call them sniff-faries. I think it's really good for him mentally. I think it's also good for him intentional walks. That intentional movement is so intentional. So imagine it's like walking out in the backyard versus walking out on leash. I think about it like going to the gym. You can say when somebody asks you, "Hey, what'd you do today?" You're like, "Oh, I went to the gym." But you went to the gym and you socialized with some friends and you walked around, you maybe thought about getting on the elliptical, but somebody was on it. And so you kind of moseyed around. You technically went to the gym. That's what I think about when dogs are only going out in their backyard to for their movement. And now I know sometimes that there are seasons for that and there are reasons. I really want to encourage you, if you can walk your dog on a leash, it is going to be so good for you and for them. Versus when you go to the gym and you get on a piece of equipment or you're working out, that's like taking them for a walk. So they're getting their sniffs, they're getting that mental stimulation, they're intentionally moving their body. You're bonding with them, you are socializing them in a way. You're getting them out into the environment to hear noises, to have sniffs. So I intentionally walk my dog twice a day. And I don't necessarily do it. Sometimes it's usually time versus distance because sometimes when he wants to sniff and smell something, I let him do that. It is so good for him mentally. So really intentional movement, and intentional, it's kind of a form of enrichment as well. Sunlight and air and natural living. So I'm also really big on keeping my blinds open when I'm not home for natural light to come in. He also is a dog that loves natural light, that if he could sit outside and sunbathe, he would. And so having the windows open for that natural light to come in, it is so good for them. It is so good for their immune system. So especially in areas in the house where he loves to sit, I make sure that that window is open so he can visually see out and he's getting that sunlight. And when I am home, again, weather depending, I like to let him out in the backyard or have a door open where he can go in and out. So that way he's getting the natural air, he's getting out in the dirt. I'm really mindful of the chemicals used on my lawn. I'm going to get to that in a minute. But being able for him to get out there and kind of get in nature is really important. And this kind of leads into household products. I'm really intentional about household products, not only for me, which is probably how this started, but I also start thinking about, oh my gosh, how's this affecting my dog? The cleaners, the fragrances, in the detergent, in the household products, the chemicals used in the lawn. So I currently don't use any chemicals on my lawn. And if I do, that they are pet safe, they are low tox, I would say. They're very friendly chemical ingredients because he's walking on grass. He's walking in the backyard a lot. And so I don't have him sprayed with traditional yard chemicals. I don't use a lot of traditional house chemicals. I either use fragrance free or very, very safe products that I currently like and trust because I'm mindful of how that can also affect him. While we're not looking at hormones at dogs the same way we do at people, because people, we look at them from a reproductive standpoint, your hormones in your dogs are also very important, especially for their metabolism and their endocrine system. So it's also very important. So I'm very mindful of the products I'm using in my household for him. And it's not necessarily I'm scared that he's going to lick them up. I don't want him to be exposed to certain fragrances because A, can be irritating to him. Also, what is it doing for him in his whole metabolic state? And so I'm also very careful about candles or fragrances that I'm using, even to make the house smell good. I'm mindful of stressors. I know what stresses him out. I know, and sometimes it is trial and error with our dogs. And so I try and be really mindful of those stressors to either limit them or how can I protect them when it happens. He's very particular when people come over. And so I'm really mindful of when that happens. I definitely try not to do it around his feeding time. A, I don't want it to disrupt that time for him. B, I don't want him getting worked up with a full stomach. That could possibly predispose him to bloating, which is a very serious condition. So I'm mindful of the stressors in the house. I'm mindful when people come over. I'm mindful that he has an area of the house where he can retreat to and feel safe and feel guarded and protected, and I can check on him. So I'm very mindful of that. I try and keep a very calm, predictable environment for him. I try and, if people are going to come over, I try and encourage them not to knock because he is also protective over his home, which I'm totally okay with. But I also know that that can trigger him that can be stressful, like who's at my house. So I'm very, very mindful of that. I try not to have overstimulation. I try and at nighttime when we're going to bed, I actually started this. So this is mid-May right now, May 2025. About probably 8 weeks ago, I actually switched my bedroom lamps from traditional lamps to lights that could switch color. And at night, I have a red light on. And so I found that it is much more soothing for me. I can only imagine it's soothing for him. And I feel like we both sleep very, very well. And so having an environment that is not going to cause overstimulation to him is also very, very important. I think we don't think about our dog's nervous systems very often, and it is very important for their health too. Stress also affects their immune system very, very much. I'm intentional about his vaccines. I'm very intentional. I think about his lifestyle. I think about his age. I think what he's at risk for. I also believe in titers. I pull titers on him for his distemper parvo. I live in Florida, and so I am concerned about leptospirosis. So that is a vaccine that he currently still gets. He's not social. Currently, right now, I'm not vaccinating him for influenza. Currently, right now, I'm not vaccinating him for Bordetella kennel cough. All that can change. I do keep up with rabies. So I'm very intentional about what vaccines he's getting, how often I'm doing them. So, and I consider his lifestyle risk and him in general as well. Also, he has been a vaccine reactor. Thank God it's only been locally, but it's gotten worse and worse. So I'm very intentional about treating him uniquely rather than just going with a vaccine guideline that's not taking into his health, his lifestyle into account. I run routine lab work on him. I do lab work on him at least every 6 months. And you'd be like, oh, it's easy, you're a veterinarian. Well, I still have to pay for testing. So I run blood work on him, very comprehensive blood work on him every 6 months. I feel like it is kind of like when you have a window to a house and you have blinds. When you have the blinds shut, you have no idea what's going on. Nothing. You can't tell me, is the sun out? Are there clouds? Is it raining? What color are the flowers outside? Is the lawn cut? When you open the blinds, you can't tell me everything, or I can't tell you everything, but it gives you a good appreciation. And that's what I feel that lab work is. So when the blinds are open, I can tell you those bushes are pink, they're blooming. This it's sunny out, there's clouds in the sky, it's breezy, the lawn is cut, the sprinklers are on, the sidewalk is clean. It gives you a general appreciation. But if I were to be like, what does it smell like outside? What is the temperature? What is the humidity? You don't know everything. And that's how I look at lab work. It gives you a really good appreciation. It allows you to open up the blinds. So I do that for him. I also do imaging on him once or twice a year to just make sure that nothing is happening. In fact, just today I saw a very sweet dog who almost fortunately about 6 weeks ago had x-rays done, radiographs for a particular reason. And thank goodness we kind of had that baseline, because when I saw that dog today, the dog came in kind of urgently not feeling well. And when I palpated its belly, I was like, ooh, this is alarming. Took x-rays or radiographs and noticed a big mass, a big tumor in its belly. Well, we knew it wasn't there about 6 weeks ago, so we looked at the x-rays, even though that wasn't why those x-rays were done in another facility. And so things can happen fast. I also like having that baseline for my pup, to have that, to know potentially what could be happening for him. So that is something I personally do for him, is I do routine lab work for him. And so that way I also get baselines. I can see trends for him. I'm very strategic about his supplements. So I have him on several supplements, because not because he needs them, but because I don't want him to have these conditions. Very mindful of his inflammation. I have him on a turmeric-based supplement at this time. I have him on something for allergy management because I want to control that versus pharmaceuticals for him, since it does work well. I have him on a mushroom blend for calming and for health purposes. I have him on a general supplement right now, again, for health purposes, and a joint supplement. So I'm really intentional about the supplements he gets because there's purpose behind them. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to delay or even prevent certain conditions from happening from him. And so I'm as consistent as possible. And here's a tip. If you want to be more consistent with your dog's supplements, put them near their food. Put them where you have to see them and you cannot forget about them. Because I get it. If it is out of sight, it is out of mind for me. So I have his supplements right near his food, and I have a routine that he gets these in the morning and these at night. It's very structured and it allows for continuity and consistency. Dental care. Dental care is healthcare. And so I'm really intentional on making sure he gets a dental when he needs it. And so something I see commonly happen with my companion animal patients is that people want to, dog owners, and maybe you've done this out of good intent, want to push off the dental cleaning as long as possible. And then when it happens, your dog or your cat is under anesthesia a lot longer. They likely need extractions, which is more time, more money, more healing in progress for them after the surgery. And so I'm intentional. He is having a dental cleaning done this month, May 2025. His last dental cleaning was November 2023. So it's been about 18 months because I'm so intentional about his nutrition. I'm so intentional about his home dental care. So that way I can extend the life between his dentals. I'm not saying he's never going to need a dental cleaning again. He needs it. All that bacteria in his mouth talks to his gut, and that gut bacteria talks to his whole body. So he gets a dental cleaning. So I'm intentional about when it's done. I'm intentional about, okay, it's justified to put him under anesthesia right now. And I take care of his teeth at home. So that way, that time in between the dentals is hopefully extended appropriately. I don't really brush his teeth. I try to. I have him chew. I use oral supplements as well for him. I think that is, and I think that's pretty much everything on my list that I had. So as a recap, I'm really intentional about his food is one of the biggest ways I can influence his health, right? And then I talked about that I daily walk him. And the reason I'm so intentional about his food, and I guess you'd say supplements, is because I can't control if we have 4 days of pouring rain here, where his walks are so limited, it's kind of go potty and go back. And here's another little tip about when you walk your dog. You can be even more intentional about watching their outputs. And what I mean by outputs, their stool, their poop, and their urine. How's their urine stream? Is it normal? Does it look like a normal color? Does it smell? Does it look cloudy? Are they having difficulty urinating? Are they urinating more than normally? Their poop. Is it a normal volume? Does it look smaller than normal? Is it more gelatinous than normal? Does it have blood in it? Is it slimier? Is it smaller? Is it looser? This gives you a lot more information about your dog. So that way you can tell your veterinarian, and that way you guys can be as a team to figure out, is there a way to improve your dog's health, or this is a missing piece to the puzzle of what's going on with your dog. I'm all about, hey, prevent a fire rather than put a fire out. Sometimes we have to put fires out, but hey, can we prevent the fire? And so food coming first, because I can't always control the environment to get him movement, but I am also really big on movement and enrichment for him, not only from a musculoskeletal physical point, but also from his brain and enrichment. Sunlight, air, and natural exposure as much as possible. Having the blinds open, getting him outside the natural air, letting him be in the dirt. And also, I didn't mention this earlier, I'm also really intentional that because I do walk him, when I bring him in from outside from a walk, I wipe his paws off, typically with organic cotton towels. So that way I'm not exposing him to other unintentional chemicals. Because what I don't know is I don't know what everybody else is using on their yard. And that's not to mean don't walk your dog as a scare tactic, but that's being mindful of you may be exposing them to other chemicals. So wiping their paws off when they come in from outside, they lick their paws, that's direct skin exposure. So that is also something I do for him. Household products, what products I use to clean. I'm also very intentional about if do they have fragrances, could they be hormone disrupting, whether for household cleaning products, fragrances I use on myself, detergents, home scents, really, really mindful of all that and cleaning the air filters. That way it's increasing the quality of air in the house. Stressors, knowing his stressors, that way I can minimize them as much as possible. So that way I can support his immune system as much as possible. Being intentional about his preventative care. So that mainly comes down to his vaccines. I'm tailoring them just for him rather than following a guideline that doesn't take his health, his lifestyle into account. Running routine lab work for baselines and to monitor trends for him. Strategic supplement use, what supplements am I using and what's the purpose behind them? And again, it's very easy to fall into a trap on here's a supplement, but let's look at the ingredients too. If it's an omega-3 or it's a joint supplement, is it filled with a lot of junk? Is it filled with a lot of sugars and carbs? They don't need that for a joint supplement. Dental care, because dental care is healthcare. I make sure he has routine dental cleanings that are fit for him based on when his dental health needs it and maintaining it at home. So by no means am I perfect. And a lot of the stuff I haven't done his whole life, but I try to be really intentional about it because it's not about being perfect, it's about being intentional. I am really careful about my dog's physical, emotional, and kind of mental state so that way I can protect him. What I'm not doing is I'm not sitting him on a couch to have a therapy session. What I am doing is being really mindful of where are ways I can support him so that way he can be set up for health long term. So that these little things can be building blocks. It's like Legos. So they can really build and really support him long time. So I hope this episode gave you ideas, gave you encouragement. give you maybe conversation topics to talk about your vet. I am cheering you on. If you are not already following me on Instagram, I encourage you to follow me at the underscore non-traditional veterinarian, where I give tips and tricks similar to this. And if you're wanting a little bit more hand holding to talk about your dog's nutrition or maybe even other factors that are non-traditional that can affect your dog's health, I really encourage you to schedule a one-on-one nutrition consultation. I'm rooting for you and your dog's health.